Hello folks, well this is Miguel from Embargo Man, and today what we're gonna talk about is invasion. So what is an invasion? All right, it is about a certain country taking over a territory. I mean, there has been history of invasions over the years. This is nothing new. I mean, it happened for a very long time, right? First you have Rome, the Roman Empire has invaded certain countries, like in Italy, probably around there. You heard of the Roman Empire, right? And then you have all the way back, you have another country that has invaded countries, Britain. So I mean, they have invaded the the Falklands, and then that's what it went to war with France or something way back then. This is just history, and just an invasion of this could happen anytime soon. We still have an invasion, and people were talking about, oh, they're gonna blame certain countries for invading. All right, so what would happen with these invasions and annexations and something, and that some people will talk about, oh yeah, it's a good thing, or sometimes it's bad. I mean, to me, or suddenly when I get to notice something, and then you have about these territorial disputes and stupid territorial disputes over, I mean, a body of water, over a piece of land. I mean, this is where all these things comes into play. The invasion, and then everybody gonna take the blame. Oh yeah, you invaded that part. This is ours, and this and that, vice versa, right? So what happened is, I mean, some certain countries don't want to be invaded. They just want to be independent, and they want to be having their own freedom and stuff, and this has happened. And some countries split up from other nations for years. An example is Ireland, Northern Ireland, and Ireland, or Republic of Ireland. Definitely, they just split up from Britain. The northern part is where it is from the British, and the southern part is independent. And then this is where, like, it has been, like, you know, against Catholics and Protestants, and it's not just religion. First it was religion, now it's all about they want to be a separate country, or they want to unite a country away from this an empire, or this territorial, a country that has invaded so many countries back then. The United States was invaded by Britain back then, but 1776, everything has changed and everything like that. and then you have the Gibraltar, that I think it was from Spain, and then British invaded. And you have Falklands, the Falkland territory, and all the disputes. And now what's going on right now is like, what's going on with invasions. It is like, let's say things could change a bit. You know. I mean, what's going on right now? What is going on right now is, I have seen some videos, and this is going to repeat itself and all. I mean, what will happen now and towards forward, you know, 3 years forward. I mean, everything could be changing. I mean, first of all, let me talk about, before all this, when we're talking about the two dam rocks in the Sea of Japan between Korea and Japan. I mean, they call it the line court. They call it Dokdo, others call it Takashima. That kind of invasion is gonna be like, well, let's see what's going on. I mean, reunified one country. I remember when the Berlin Wall, I mean, I was 11, the Berlin Wall fell down. The Soviet Union is over, and then you have all these countries that split from the Soviet Union. Okay, but then in the other side, I mean, for one country to be united, then there'll be, I mean, somebody has to die of this disease called COVID. Gonna have a bunch of other variants. I know they're gonna blame somebody else for the COVID. I mean, for coronavirus, and then, oh yeah, these folks has brought COVID to China. Of course, you know the country's name, who they gonna blame for. It is not the USA, but we definitely went to war against this country during World War II. But it's gonna be just such a surprise that, I mean, what would happen is that we have all these damn wars, and it's gonna be growing more and more, and still some of these people will not say, oh yeah, because we invaded by the British. All right, so point for that blank is for certainly, you know, one country wanted to be part of another country just to have an invaded one country, or let's say start a war. I mean, we don't want it, and that's what would happen. You have the Queen Elizabeth. I mean, she's old, right? So she is old. And then you have William, you have Kate. Put it that way, Kate might pass away from another variant of COVID. And what you're gonna have here is that William will be king, and it would be the widower king going to be married to a Asian woman, probably somebody from the Korean royal family, you know, all because of two damn rocks. And that would be the next phase of all things. You know, the court and Hagi over other territorial disputes, you know, over the Lane Court rocks, over, you know, Tsushima and all that stuff. That is going to be a whole twist and turns about all this, you know. A reason for the Brexit. Just wait and see who they're going to blame for this disease. But now another thing is, I mean, I have seen videos of another invasion that was taking me back to the 1990s. Back in the 1990s, early 90s, when George P. Bush, I mean, H.W. Bush, the invasion of Kuwait, Iraq's invasion of Kuwait. I mean, all it is because of, I mean, there's these countries that have oil. Iraq has oil, Kuwait has oil. I mean, and talking about Saddam Hussein, back then it was, okay, let's free Kuwait from the Iraqi invasion. And then after that, you know, Bush the father, you know, no longer running the show until George W. came in, and 9/11, everything is set up or everything like that. I think this is like a job from the elites. I mean, everything has settled up for the invasion of Iraq. I mean, we're sending troops to Iraq and other stuff. I mean, the U.S. and its allies are sending troops to Iraq, and after that, Saddam Hussein got killed. He got hanged, and this is where the ISIS came along, right? This is everything all being set up to this next invasion, or to say what's gonna be next. All right, so I mean, during the Soviet Union era, during the split, the end of the Soviet Union, each country has split up. You have Kazakhstan, Belarus, all these countries part of the Soviet Union, even Russia. I mean, and then you have this guy named Vladimir Putin, and then what we're gonna have in there, what's gonna be next of invasion. I mean, this kind of sucks what happened with this invasion. What we're gonna see is another Bush, right? We're gonna see another Bush. We're gonna see this thing repeats itself again, but this time American troops are going to Russia. Why are they going to Russia? Because it's going to be the same thing that had happened back in the 1990s when we went to the war in Iraq. Now, American troops are going to Russia. Why? Because what had happened in Ukraine. And I've seen videos of the Crimea. Crimea is supposed to be from Ukraine, and the Ukrainians want to be independent. That's what's going to happen. We're going to have another Bush. I mean, Jeb is going to run the show pretty soon. I mean, that means in 2024. I'm not going to predict that, but this is what happened. It happened in the past. It happened with other countries invading other territories, and then and all in between, right? So, as they say, the sun never sets in the in the British territory, or and the sun never sets in the British Empire. That means the British Empire might soon be next to the Sea of Japan pretty soon. Let's see how things are gonna go like that. And this is the kind of unification of one country. The unification of Korea would be okay. We might have Kim William V, right? So that's what's gonna be next. And that's gonna be pretty soon in the next phase of all this thing. I'm gonna have WW3. I mean, WW3. I mean, what we're gonna have? Puerto Rico as the 50th state. That might be the case, and whatever the case may be. So, what's gonna happen next? I think invasions, or like it has been forever. It has been for years. The Roman Empire. I mean, everything repeats itself. Nero, you know, when Rome was on fire, we have our own Nero. You know, who is that Nero? We had, I mean, the US had Nero. And after we had the American Nero, then what's going to be next is, I mean, instead of the Berlin Wall falling down back in 1990, the unification of Germany, Korea's next. The only thing's gonna be falling down would be somebody from the royal family, or two people from the royal family would pass away. One of old age, one of another variant of COVID, and what's going to be next of this other variant of COVID, then William becomes king, will be a widower, he'll marry a Korean woman, and I could tell you the country who they're gonna blame on COVID. The country they were going to blame on COVID would be Japan. They'll say, oh, Japan invented COVID. Japan brought COVID to China, and this is where it begins, in Wuhan. It started in Japan. Let's say a virus that is made in Japan is sent to China, and it's spread to Wuhan, and that's what I mean. King William and his new wife, and everything is gonna start like that. Then you have the Lincoln rocks, then you have Tsushima. But in the other case, on the Ukraine side, you know, about Crimea, what happened in 2014, and what's gonna happen now is, I mean, more of that's have happened in Iraq instead of Saddam Hussein is Vladimir Putin. I mean, what this invasion is, it sucks, and I mean, be prepared for all these things is gonna combine. Get ready for another Butch running the show. Get ready to, like, okay, get your ass to Russia, because that's next. That's your new Iraq now. I mean, that's about it. But please, I mean, the invasion has happened all over the years. It already happened. Rome has invaded so many countries in the Roman Empire. Britain has invaded. I mean, Britain invaded more countries than any other country in the world. They invaded India. They invaded, and it's still they going to invade. But instead of, you know, saying we're not gonna resist, this says if you can't beat them, join them. One country is gonna jump on the bandwagon just to unify themselves, right? I mean, that's what's going to happen. That's was gonna be what is going on, right? That is gonna happen pretty soon. But before all this kind of mess comes, the first things was going to happen of this invasion. I mean, even Iraq has invaded Kuwait, and that has happened. But then Iraq becomes Russia, Kuwait becomes Ukraine, and what we're gonna have right there is, after the invasion, a Russian invasion of Ukraine, there might be a WW3. Who's gonna be on our side? Who we going to fight against? And probably what we need to happen is that even people in Taiwan, and yeah, I just said about free trade with Taiwan because China supports Russia so much, is that the only reason that I would want, or probably if this going to happen, then the best thing that could happen, it would be Taiwan opening an Israel embassy in Jerusalem. And Taiwan embassy in Jerusalem supposed to happen, or should supposed to happen right now, because I mean, what we're gonna happen, it is to let Israel be ready to use their nukes. If they're able to use their nukes to toss rockets on China. Why? I mean, not just the Chinese folks, but, you know, most likely the government that China has right now. That means invasion, and the Palestinians would side with the Chinese, or whatever it is. What it is for that would this WW3 would have happened would be if Taiwan opens an Israel embassy in Jerusalem, but opening Taiwan embassy, Taiwan embassy in Israel and Jerusalem might lead to a WW3. And what might lead in the WW3? Well, China would be like the Japan of 1945, and it's going to be called God's work. Yeah, it's going to be called God's work if the Chinese were supporting the Palestinians. I mean, it sucks, but you know, this is what it is. But I mean, nuclear weapons banning and whatever is so hard to do. Anything that, I mean, involve great harming people on whatever the case may be, and and then doing it on China, what they done on Japan in 1945, it will be, that's the work of God one day. Why? Because, I mean, the reason why this invasion, I mean, like, let's say the Palestine and Israel, the Holy Land, I mean, this has been biblically happening, right, since the Bible. I mean, those stories would be, oh yeah, we heard so much about Palestine and Israel, right? So Russia, Ukraine, and everything else, what was gonna happen is that this invasion, like that happened with Crimea, and also like Russia has invaded some countries. What was the Soviet Union is with Russia, it's the main country, that they also have some islands northern of Hokkaido. And those islands northern of Hokkaido would be a response to the planning of the invasion of Ukraine, right? So that's it. Other territorial disputes, named Fort Rocks, Tsushima or something like that, that's handled it over. But then then we're not talking about Korea, but Russia, right? So what will happen if Putin has planned to invade certain areas? So what's going to be next? What's going to be next, we're going to have, of this invasion that's happening on, we're going to have another Bush running the show in the United States, NATO, that you have these countries, even countries from the former Soviet Union are part of NATO. The thing is that they don't want Ukraine to be part of NATO. That's the thing. Even though the country is supposedly be independent, what was going to happen is another Bush going to run the show. American troops are going to be sent to Russia, and probably WW3 might happen. But just to have a kickstart with WW3 being a nuclear holocaust would be if Taiwan would settle an embassy in Jerusalem, just to see if China would experience the same thing as Japan had experienced back in 1945 during World War II, but with Israel. That's it. And that would happen to China, like similar to Japan back in 1945, would be called, this is what God orders. This is God's work. It's a God-given will. It's a God-given right. Well, that's what's going to happen if Taiwan put an embassy in Jerusalem. Write me a comment. What do you think? What do you think of all of this? What do you think of invasions? I mean, invasion sucks. I mean, there's countries that they don't want to be invaded. They want to be independent. So write me a comment. Tell me about it. And tell me whatever comment it is you think. If you think that Taiwan putting an embassy in Jerusalem will kickstart World War III, will kickstart China's fate as what happened to Japan back in 1945, just for, like, say, the Palestinians sided with China. But there's one thing. China might just have part of Palestine going against Israel in the Gaza Strip. So there is this now World War III would be the Gaza Strip, Palestinians with China's control. They're going to use Taiwan, Israel, and Taiwan. I mean, what's going to happen if that's going to be possible? I mean, World War III would be if that would happen. But please write me a comment what you think of the idea of a free trade with Taiwan. Taiwan putting an embassy in Jerusalem, in Israel. What do you think about going to war, sending American troops to Russia, another Bush as president, but this time it's going to be Jeb Bush, you know? I mean, what's going to happen right now there of this invasion? Just write me a comment. So please subscribe and hit the bell button on the Embargo Man channel. I'm going to ask you make another video, but this time I'll have some interesting topics available. So goodbye, peace out, and have a nice day, evening, or whatever. Oh well, have a nice week. Take care and God bless.